Let me talk about the rule of law. I want to focus on a very good article in, well, it's on the Substack by the Harvard Law professor Adrian Vermeule, and it is about the rule of law and the rule of courts. Now, this is really important because so many people, including people on our side, I've got a pretty good friend who often texts me about this. He's a libertarian, and he's blasting Trump because he keeps saying Trump can't ignore the rule of law. But of course, the underlying assumption that my friend makes and many other people make is not unique. In fact, recently there was an opinion by the Virginia judge, conservative judge, I think Reagan appointee Harvey Wilkinson. And Harvey Wilkinson basically says this. He says, listen, we can't let the executive do what it wants, because if that is the case, then, quote, the executive's obligation to take care that the laws be faithfully executed would lose its meaning. This is the core of the matter, because it seems, on the one hand, kind of obvious that, hey, we've got to hold the Congress and the executive to account, and it's the job of the courts, who else, to do that. And so the courts need to perform a supervisory function both on Congress and on the executive. And this article, written by Adrian Vermeule, basically says, no, that is actually not what the court's job is. Because if the court's job was that, the court would be running the country. The court would be like, listen, anybody else can make a decision. Congress can make a decision, make a law, but then turn it over to us. We'll decide if it really is a law or if we need to rewrite it for you and give it back to you, or what the law should be according to us, which overrides what you think it should be. And what kind of a democracy would we be if the courts had that kind of power to essentially tell Congress what to do? And similarly with the executive, if the president or the instrumentalities of the president, the agencies of the president, all did things, and the courts basically said, hey, listen, whenever you do anything inside the executive branch, turn it over to us, and we will then tell you if you can keep doing it or not. And if not, we will tell you how you should be doing it. Now, the point here is that that approach is not only on the face of it absurd, impractical, but that is not what the role of the courts is at all. Professor Vermeule begins by talking about something that doesn't seem related at first, but it italicizes the point. When people talk about the president having immunity, it sounds like the president is kind of being given some kind of a get-out-of-jail-free card. The president has been given some kind of a pass. Like, listen, the laws don't really apply to you. You have immunity. But that is not what presidential immunity means. According to Professor Vermeule, what presidential immunity means is that certain actions of the president are unreviewable by the court. It's kind of like saying that if I'm speeding on the highway, it's unreviewable by the IRS. Right? The IRS has no jurisdiction. They're not giving me, quote, immunity to speed. It's not their job to figure out if I'm speeding or not at all. That's not why we have an IRS. Yes, they have their own proper function, but this is not what it is. Now, Professor Vermeule gives several examples to show why his theory is right and why it cannot be the case that courts can play this kind of second-guessing role. I want to highlight two of these examples to make the point. Example number one. Professor Vermeule says that the army, the military in general, has been created according to law. In other words, there are laws passed, there are congressional allocations of money for the military, so the military is a lawful institution. And now, says Professor Vermeule, does the court have the right to second-guess the military on any matter at all? So, for example, let's say the military decides we're going to do a strike against the Houthi rebels in Yemen, or we're going to, let's just say, pick up our weaponry and leave Afghanistan. Why can't a judge issue an injunction and say, no, you can't do that. You can't leave our equipment over there. It's too expensive. The judge does not get to second-guess the military. Why? Because that is not in the judge's authority at all. The military has a function to perform, and that aspect of the function is not reviewable by the court. Again, the military is not being given some kind of, quote, immunity. The military is not subject to that kind of judicial looking over the shoulder at all. Here's a second example. The president's foreign policy dealings with foreign countries. Again, why can't a court step in and go, listen, I'm going to put a temporary injunction on Donald Trump's recent agreement with Keir Starmer and Great Britain. I'm going to stop it. It has to be null and void until we litigate it in my court and we figure this out over the next several months. No, courts cannot do that. This is outside their purview. So you can see just from those two examples that Professor Vermeule is obviously correct. In the Soviet Union, totalitarianism came with gulags, secret police, and brute force. But in the West, it looks different. It's soft, it's subtle. It comes cloaked in compassion and compliance. Live Not by Lies. That is a docuseries by Angel Studios. It exposes how the soft totalitarianism is already taking root in America and beyond. Based on Rod Dreher's best-selling book, the series shares the testimonies of men and women who have lived through communist regimes and now see disturbing parallels in today's world. They warn of the dangers of conformity, the erosion of religious freedom, and the rise of ideological control in schools and businesses. But this isn't just a warning, it's a call to action, a reminder that truth is worth standing for. So if you care about faith, family, and freedom, check it out. Live Not by Lies is a required viewing docuseries. It's only available on Angel Guild. Join today by visiting angel.com/Dinesh and stream Live Not by Lies along with hundreds of other films and shows. That is angel.com/Dinesh.